A few years ago, I sold a house, and afterwards, I met the owners who bought the house. And they said to me that when they first saw the house, when they first came in, they knew that this was going to be what, and they used the words, their forever home. That kind of struck me because I had never heard that before. And now I hear it over and over and over. People are shopping for houses, they're looking for their what they call forever home. It's kind of interesting because, nothing in this world lasts, including us. I mean, we're not going to be here forever. And so, the Bible instructs us to think of heavenly things, think of eternal things, for the things of this world are temporal. And so that phrase, forever home, is important for us as Christians because we have a forever home. It's called the New Jerusalem, our heavenly city, which God and Jesus has prepared for us. And so we're going to look at this subject today a little bit, and we're going to kind of go back and forth. Like the last message talking about the who is the sun-clothed woman of Revelation chapter 12. This is kind of part 2 of that. We're going to kind of pick up on some things where we left off last time, and then we're going to add to it a little bit more about the New Jerusalem and what this all means. But we're going to start here in Revelation 21 verse 1, and it says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no longer any sea." Now, real quick, I don't believe that the present heaven and earth will be completely destroyed, and then God will, create a new heaven and a new earth. I really think this is talking about a renewed heaven and a renewed earth. And I have some verses here that I had gotten ready to show you why I think that way. In 2 Peter 3:10, Peter said, "But the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night, in the which the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the elements will be destroyed with intense heat, and the earth and its works will be burned up. Since all these things are to be destroyed in this way, what sort of people ought you to be in holy conduct and godliness, looking for and hastening the coming of the day of God, because of which the heavens will be destroyed by burning, and the elements will melt with intense heat." This seems to me more or less to be a purification. Verse 13, "But according to his promise, we are looking for a new heaven and a new earth, in the which righteousness dwells." And again, this would be a renewed heavens and a renewed earth. Jesus did say that the heavens in Mark 13:31, "The heavens and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away." And so they will pass away, meaning in their current form. They will pass away. And then Romans 8:20, it says, "For the creation was subjected to futility." The creation would be the heavens and the earth. All of creation was subjected to futility, not just human beings. Not willingly, but because of him who subjected it. And that was Adam. When he sinned, all of creation was affected. That the creation itself will also be set free from its slavery to corruption. So, this here, it says that the current creation will be set free. It doesn't seem like it's saying that it's going to be done away with, and then a completely new creation is going to come forth. Verse 22, "For we know that the whole creation groans and suffers the pains of childbirth together until now." And then Paul goes into talking about how at one point in the future, even our physical bodies will receive a redemption of our bodies. That's the resurrection. And just like our bodies will receive a resurrection or a glorification, the heavens and the earth will also receive that. A couple of more verses. Ecclesiastes 1:4 says, "A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever." So here's one of those verses that says, well, that the current earth will never go away. It's going to be renewed, but that's totally different than saying it's going to be done away with. Psalms 104 verse 5 says, "And he established upon the earth its foundations, so that it will not totter forever and ever." And that word totter is to be moved out of place. It will not be moved out of place forever and ever. So here are just a few verses talking about that. And so when in Revelation 21, when it says, "I saw a new heaven and a new earth," at least I think it's talking about the same heaven and earth just being renewed or purified by fire. And it goes on in verse 2, "And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, made ready as a bride adorned for her husband." Okay, so here's the new Jerusalem. We sometimes call it the heavenly Jerusalem. At the end of the millennial reign of Christ, when all authority, all rule, all the God's enemies, including death, which is the last enemy, shall be put down, then the heavens and earth will be renewed and burned with fire and purified. And then after that, the new Jerusalem, which is currently in heaven, the heavenly Jerusalem, will actually come down to the earth. And so our forever home is in the new Jerusalem, the heavenly Jerusalem, but in the future, that heavenly Jerusalem will be on the earth. So we are earthbound forever. This is what the scriptures teach, and the new Jerusalem is our forever home. And we talked about last time about the sun-clothed woman being the heavenly Jerusalem, or being Zion. And heavenly Jerusalem and Zion are interchangeable terms. And we can also look at the sun-clothed woman as being true Israel, the people of God, the redeemed people of God of all history, of all time. And I kind of look at it like this. People talk about the church of God, and they say the church isn't the building that we go to, right? The church is the people that go to the building. The building is just, brick and stone and wood and whatever. But the church, the true church, is the people. And in like manner, the New Jerusalem itself, the city itself, doesn't really mean anything without the people of God. So they're really all three interchangeable. The true Israel, which are all God's, all believers of all time, is the sun-clothed woman of Revelation 12. The New Jerusalem, or heavenly Jerusalem, is the sun-clothed woman of Revelation 12. And Zion, specifically in Isaiah chapter 66, the woman is called Zion. And so really the sun-clothed woman, it's interchangeable. All three of them could be considered the sun-clothed woman. So last time we were talking about that, and in Revelation 12, I want to point out a couple of verses. Here it's talking about the pregnant woman who gives birth to the male child. But what happens after the woman gives birth? That's what we're going to look at here for just a second. It says in verse 5, "And she gave birth to a son, a male child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up to God and to his throne." Now, I'm still going to do a teaching on who this male child is. It's probably one of the most important and probably one of my favorite things in all of the book of Revelation. But before I did that video, I wanted to do a continuation of the sun-clothed woman, just to kind of get some more of the details and set more of a foundation for what we're going to talk about when it comes to the male child. But after this male child is born, it says a few verses earlier that the dragon was waiting for this child to be born so that he could devour the child. But he's furious with this woman as well. And it says in verse 6, "Then the woman, as soon as the child is born, the woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared by God so that there she would be nourished for 1,260 days. Now, this 1,260 days is referring to the last half of Daniel's 70th week. That's that last 3.5 years. So the woman flees. She's not on earth. She's not present on the earth during that 1,260 days. But it says that she flees to the wilderness where she has a place prepared. What's this prepared place? Well, in John 14:3, this is a very familiar passage of Scripture. Jesus said something about this. He said, "In my Father's house are many dwelling places." Another translation says, "many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you, for I go to prepare a place for you." I go to prepare a place for you. He's talking about in heaven, he's going to prepare a place. "And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also." So when Jesus ascended into heaven, all of this time between then and now, he's been preparing a place for us. Not just, for all believers, not just for you and me, but for all believers of all time. And the place that he has been preparing is our New Jerusalem, our heavenly Jerusalem, our home, our forever home. And so when in Revelation 12:6, when it says the woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared, well, this prepared place is what Jesus has been doing for the last 2,000 years, which means that the woman is not on the earth. She's not present on the earth during the last 3.5 years. So sometimes people might say, well, how does that work then? Because we know that if the woman represents the people of God, how then because we know that the dragon goes and persecutes the woman, and then the saints of God are persecuted for the last 3.5 years. That's a good question, and that's what we're going to look at right now. So while the woman flees, it's a little bit later on in the same chapter. It's Satan and his angels are cast down to the earth, and that happens in the very middle of the last 7 years. And it says in verse 13, "And when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child." So a lot of times this didn't make sense to me for many, many years. I couldn't understand what this means, because I know that the woman, she gets taken out of here and she's protected for that last 3.5 years. So how is this that the dragon starts to persecute the woman who gave birth? How does he persecute her? And again, here in verse 14, it says, but 2 wings of a great eagle were given to the woman, so that she could fly into the wilderness, to her place, the place that was prepared for her, where she was nourished for a time, times and a half a time from the presence of the serpent. So the woman is not present for the serpent to persecute her for the duration of the 3.5 years. But a little bit later, it says he gives up. So the dragon gives up persecuting the woman. And it says, "And the dragon was enraged with the woman," right? "And went off." So he leaves the persecution of the woman and he goes to make war with the rest of her children who keep the commandments of God and hold the testimony of Jesus. So the persecution is that the dragon is doing for the duration of the last 3.5 years is actually towards the saints of God on the earth. So what does it mean when it says up here, when the dragon saw he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman? How did he persecute the woman if she was taken off into a place that he couldn't reach her? Well, we find the answer to that in Revelation 13. There's a beast that comes up out of the sea, and the dragon, Satan, gives his authority his power, okay, to this beast that comes up out of the sea. And the beast has that authority for 3.5 years. And it was given to him, the beast, a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months, or 3.5 years. Now here's the verse I wanted to show you. And he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. So he's mad at the woman because she gave birth to a male child. But the woman is taken up into heaven, and apparently this beast on the earth persecutes the woman by, hurling, blasphemies and anger and spewing out all kinds of hatred towards the woman who gave birth to the man-child. Because that's what it says here. He opened his mouth in blasphemies against God to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle. Well, the tabernacle is talking about the dwelling place of all these believers in heaven. And it says, that is the tabernacle, that is those who dwell in heaven. So it was given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. Those are the saints that are on the earth. So when we go back over here, and we take that into account, what it says over in Revelation 13, it says, and the dragon saw, when the dragon saw he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the man-child. That persecution is coming in the form of him hurling blasphemies at this woman, at the people of God that are in heaven, right? But he can't touch those people because they're in heaven. And he's angry because of the fact that they're not here anymore, and he has no recourse to do anything about it. And he's really angry. But concerning the woman, it says, 2 wings of a great eagle were given to her, so that she could fly into the wilderness to her place, her prepared place. And there she's nourished for 3.5 years from the presence of the serpent. And the serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman. And that's what it says over in Revelation 13. It says that the beast was given a mouth speaking blasphemies, and that mouth, he hurled these accusations, these horrible things to her, but that's all he could do. It's just words. I mean, he can say all he wants. But that is the answer to this, what it's talking about here when it says he poured out water like a river out of his mouth. These are the hatred that coming out of his mouth. But the woman is protected for the last 3.5 years. So the dragon was enraged with the woman because he can't reach her, and he went off to make war with the rest of her children who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. Now these children are the saints, the people who will become Christians after the midpoint of the last 7 years, after Jesus appears and Satan and his angels are cast down to the earth. During the last 3.5 years, there's going to be a lot of people who come to Christ, who hold the testimony of Jesus, and these are the people that the dragon will go after during that last 3.5 years. But I want to turn our attention back over to John chapter 4, verse 3, where Jesus said, I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself. And that's what we see happen over in Revelation chapter 12, when the woman is taken by 2 wings of a great eagle. That is Jesus receiving them unto himself. Taking the Christians off of the earth and from out of the earth, as it's talking about the resurrection, into the place he has prepared for them and for us, right? And so, getting back to the New Jerusalem, Galatians 4, verse 26, that place is the New Jerusalem, and Paul said the Jerusalem which is above, the heavenly Jerusalem, is free, and she is our mother. And in the last teaching, we talked about how the sun-clothed woman is the New Jerusalem, or true Israel. She is our mother. So let's take a closer look at the New Jerusalem, because the Bible gives us a lot of details about it. And since this is going to be our forever home, it's good to know what it's going to be like. So John saw in verse 2, he saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. But down in verse 9, it says, "Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of the 7 last plagues came and spoke with me, saying, 'Come here, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb.' And he carried me away into the Spirit to a great high mountain, and he showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God." So the New Jerusalem is the bride or the wife of the Lamb. Now, again, we know that this is figurative language. There isn't actually going to be a literal wedding, and the New Jerusalem isn't actually literally a bride. This is figurative language talking about the relationship that the people of God have with Jesus. It's explaining or illustrating our relationship with him. Okay, so don't get too hung up on the language here, thinking that there's going to be an actual literal wedding that's going to take place, or that the New Jerusalem is an actual literal bride. It's figurative. It says, "And having the glory of God, her brilliance was like very costly stone, and stone of crystal clear jasper. And it had a great and high wall," okay, the New Jerusalem, "with 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and the names were written on them, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the sons of Israel. And there were 3 gates on the east, and 3 gates on the north, and 3 gates on the south, and 3 gates on the west. And the wall of the city had 12 foundation stones, and on them were the 12 names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. And the one who spoke with me had a gold measuring rod to measure the city and its gates and its walls. The city is laid out as a square, and its length is as great as its width, and he measured the city with a rod, 1,500 miles. Its length and width and height are equal." So it's laid out like a square. So it's it looks like either a box or a pyramid. We won't know until some people think it's a pyramid because both would fit the description. But the walls of the city are 1,500 miles in every direction, and it's also 1,500 miles high. Well, that's bigger than the United States of America. That's a big city. And it says he measured the wall. Now it's talking about the width of the wall. We already know what the height of the wall is. It's 1,500 miles. He measured the wall 72 yards. So 3/4 of a football field. That's how thick the wall is. Okay? According to human measurements, which is also angelic measurements. The material of the wall was jasper, and the city was pure gold, like clear glass. Foundation stones of the city wall were adorned with every kind of precious stone. The first foundation stone was jasper, second sapphire. I mean, all these different kinds of, beautiful stones and gems. The 12 gates in verse 21 were 12 pearls. So, you've heard about the pearly gates of heaven. This is where it comes from. But it's not like beads of pearls, like from the 70s, hanging in a doorway. Each gate, massive gate, the gate itself was 1 pearl. And it says, "And the street of the city was pure gold like transparent glass." This is a pretty nice place. This is what Jesus has been preparing for us for the last 2,000 years. This is the heavenly Jerusalem, or Zion. Verse 22, I saw no temple in it, for the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb are its temple. And the city has no need of the sun or of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God has illumined it, and its lamp is the Lamb. So this is the holy city. This is our forever home. And I'm looking forward to being there one day. I hope to see you there as well. God bless you. We'll see you next time.